You learned early that love was conditional, not because anyone said it out loud, not because there was cruelty in your home, necessarily, but because you noticed, even as a child, that certain versions of you received warmth and other versions received silence. You brought home a test with 98% written at the top, and your father glanced at it, nodded once, and asked where the other 2 points went. Your mother smiled when you cleaned your room without being asked, but when you forgot, when you were simply a child lost in play, her disappointment hung in the air like smoke. You learned to read the room before you entered it. You learned to scan faces for approval before you spoke. You learned that being good wasn't enough. You had to be better, and then better than that. You learned that mistakes weren't just errors. They were evidence of your inadequacy, proof that you weren't trying hard enough, that somewhere inside you lived a fundamental flaw that had to be controlled, managed, perfected away. This is how perfectionism is born, not in a single moment, not in one cruel word, but in 1,000 tiny transactions where your worth became negotiable, where love felt like something you had to earn by never being wrong, never being messy, never being inconveniently human. And now, decades later, you're exhausted. You've achieved things. You've checked boxes. You've made people proud. But somewhere along the way, you stopped knowing who you are beneath all the accomplishments, beneath the carefully constructed image of competence you present to the world. You wake up tired, not just physically, but existentially, tired of performing, tired of the voice in your head that catalogs every flaw, every stumble, every moment you weren't quite enough. You sit at your desk and stare at a blank page, paralyzed, not because you don't know what to write, but because whatever you write might be wrong, might be imperfect, might reveal that you're not as capable as everyone believes. So you wait, you research more, you plan more, you convince yourself you're being thorough when really, you're hiding. This is what perfectionism does. It masquerades as excellence, as high standards, as simply caring about quality. But underneath, it's fear. It's the belief that your value as a person is determined by your performance. That if you stumble, if you fail, if you let anyone see the messy, uncertain, still figuring it out parts of you, they'll realize you were never worthy of love to begin with. You were so young when this started. Maybe 6, maybe 7. You don't remember the exact moment, but you remember the feeling. The way your chest tightened when your mother's face fell at your mistake. The way you learned to anticipate disappointment before it arrived. You became hypervigilant, scanning every interaction for signs that you were failing, that you weren't enough. Your parents didn't mean to do this. That's the complicated part. They loved you. They still love you. But their own wounds shaped how they loved you. Maybe your father grew up poor and believed that perfection was the only insurance against loss. Maybe your mother was raised by critical parents and learned to express care through critique because that's how care was shown to her. They were doing the best they could with the tools they had. But the message you received was clear. You are loved when you succeed, when you make us proud, when you reflect well on us. When you're simply you, flawed, uncertain, still learning, there's silence where warmth should be. Children don't have the capacity to question this. They don't think, my parents are projecting their own anxiety onto me. They think, I must not be good enough yet. They think, if I just try harder, if I just do better, then I'll finally feel safe. So you tried harder. You became the good child, the responsible one, the one who never caused problems because problems meant you were a problem. And it worked, in a way. You got praise. You got recognition. Teachers loved you. Other parents pointed to you as an example. You learned that achievement could fill the gap where unconditional love should have been. But achievement is a poor substitute for acceptance. It's a treadmill with no end point. Because no matter what you accomplish, the voice inside, the one that sounds suspiciously like your parents' expectations, always asks, "What's next? Is that really your best? Are you sure? You're in your 20s now, or your 30s, or beyond, and you still feel like a child waiting for permission to rest. You still feel like you're one mistake away from being exposed as the fraud you secretly believe you are." Imposter syndrome isn't a syndrome. It's a logical conclusion when you've spent your entire life believing that your value must be proven rather than simply felt. You watch other people make mistakes and move on, and you wonder how they do it, how they shrug off failure, how they laugh at their own errors, how they exist in the world without the constant terror that one wrong move will unravel everything. You don't know how to tell them that for you. Every mistake feels like an existential threat. That when you get critical feedback, it's not just information, it's confirmation of your deepest fear, that you're not actually good enough, that you've been faking it, that everyone is about to realize you don't belong. So you overwork. You triple check. You stay up late making sure everything is flawless because flawless feels like safe. You say yes when you want to say no because disappointing people feels like dying. You apologize constantly, even when you've done nothing wrong, because maybe if you apologize first, you can control the narrative, soften the blow of whatever judgment is coming. Your body keeps the score. You have tension in your jaw from clenching it. Your shoulders live somewhere up by your ears. You have stomach problems because anxiety has nowhere else to go. You get sick more often than you should because your nervous system never rests, never feels safe enough to let down its guard. You're running on cortisol and willpower, and you're so used to it that you've forgotten what calm feels like. People call you driven, ambitious, hardworking, and maybe you are those things. But you're also terrified. You're also running from the fear that if you stop, if you slow down, if you're not constantly producing and performing, you'll be revealed as the inadequate person you've always suspected you were. The tragic irony is that you're probably brilliant. You're probably more capable than most, but you can't see it. You can't feel it, because the metric you're using to measure yourself is impossibility. You're comparing your insides, the mess, the doubt, the uncertainty, to everyone else's outsides. You're holding yourself to a standard that no human being could meet, and then you're calling it just having high standards. Your parents weren't trying to hurt you. They were trying to protect you. They believed that if they pushed you, if they didn't let you settle for mediocrity, you'd be safe in a world that punishes failure. But what they didn't understand is that you internalized the pushing. You didn't learn to be excellent. You learned to be afraid. You learned that your worth is conditional, that you have to earn the right to exist peacefully in your own skin. And now you're the one doing the pushing. You're the one who can't accept your own humanity. You look in the mirror and see all the ways you're falling short. You review your day and catalog your failures. You interact with people and replay every awkward moment. Every time you said the wrong thing. Every time you weren't as impressive as you wanted to be. This is the inheritance of perfectionism. It's not about having high standards. It's about never feeling safe to be yourself. It's about believing that love is something you have to perform your way into rather than something you deserve simply by existing. It's about spending your whole life trying to become someone worthy of acceptance, never realizing that acceptance isn't something you become worthy of. It's something you needed all along, exactly as you were. You can trace it all back if you sit quietly enough. You can remember the specific moments when the lesson was taught. The time you came home excited about a B+ and your father said, "What happened? You're better than this." The time you won second place and your mother asked why you weren't first. The time you made a mistake in the school play and the car ride home was silent, heavy with unspoken disappointment. These weren't moments of abuse. These were moments of miscalibrated love. Your parents thought they were motivating you. They thought they were helping you reach your potential. They didn't realize they were teaching you that your value was tied to your output, that their love had terms and conditions, that you had to be perfect to be safe. And the cruelest part? You've spent your life proving them right. You've become successful. You've achieved. You've made them proud. But at what cost? You've achieved their version of success while abandoning your own sense of self. You've won their approval while losing your ability to approve of yourself. You've become exactly what they wanted. And in the process, you've forgotten how to want anything for yourself. Because underneath all the achievement, there's a question you've never been able to answer. Who are you when you're not performing? Who are you when no one is watching? When there's no metric to meet? No expectation to exceed? You don't know. And that terrifies you. Because if your worth is tied to what you do, then who are you when you're simply being? The healing begins when you realize that the voice in your head, the one that criticizes, that demands more, that's never satisfied, isn't your voice. It's an echo. It's the internalized expectations of people who loved you imperfectly. It's the accumulated weight of a childhood spent earning rather than receiving. And you have the power to question it, to talk back to it, to gently, firmly tell it that it's wrong. You are not your achievements. You are not your productivity. You are not the sum of your accomplishments or the absence of your mistakes. You are a human being with inherent worth, and that worth doesn't increase when you succeed or decrease when you fail. It simply is. It was there when you were born, before you'd done anything to earn it, and it will be there when you die, regardless of what you did in between. This is hard to believe because it contradicts everything you learned. But watch a child. Watch a baby. Do they have to earn their right to be loved? Do they have to perform to be worthy of tenderness? No. They're loved because they exist. Because they're here. And you were that child once. You were loved before you were useful. And that love, that original, uncomplicated, unconditional love, is still what you deserve. The perfectionism won't disappear overnight. It's been your survival strategy for too long. But you can begin to loosen its grip. You can start to notice when you're being cruel to yourself. You can pause and ask, would I talk to a friend this way? Would I hold someone I love to this impossible standard? The answer is almost always no. You reserve your harshest judgment for yourself. You give others the grace you refuse to give yourself. What would it look like to speak to yourself the way you speak to the people you love? What would it feel like to make a mistake and respond with curiosity instead of shame? To try something new without the crushing pressure of having to be immediately excellent at it? To exist in the world not as a project to be perfected, but as a person allowed to be imperfect? Your parents gave you what they had. They loved you within the limits of their own healing. And now it's your turn to give yourself what they couldn't. Permission to be human. Permission to fail. Permission to be in process, to be figuring it out, to be gloriously, magnificently imperfect. You are enough. Not because you've achieved enough. Not because you've finally done enough to earn it. But because enoughness isn't something you achieve. It's something you are. It always has been. And the moment you stop running, stop proving, stop performing, the moment you finally let yourself rest, you'll realize it was true all along. You were always enough. You just couldn't see it because you were too busy trying to become it.